He raised me like a daughter, and then kissed me like a lover. Those were the haunting words that opened Jessica Moore's journal, a journal found hidden behind the drywall of a modest house in Austin, Texas. The house had long since been sold, the family scattered, and what remained was a dusty box of memories sealed within plaster and silence. Her story wasn't fiction. It was a reality buried under layers of denial, secrecy, and betrayal. A story that began with love, morphed into confusion, and ended in the kind of justice that shakes a community to its core. Jessica's handwriting, neat and looping, painted the picture of an ordinary girl with extraordinary pain. The first line alone felt like a scream muffled by time. No one saw the moment it all changed. Not even me. Welcome to Karma Strikes, where betrayal meets justice. In today's episode, you're about to witness how a seemingly perfect suburban family was torn apart by an unspeakable truth. A forbidden romance born from misplaced trust, blurred boundaries, and a darkness that crept in slowly, like a whisper in the dark. The first time Jessica met Andrew Wallace, she was still wearing braces. He had a firm handshake, a strong jawline, and an easy charm that disarmed even the most skeptical teachers at her middle school. Her mother, Lorraine, had met him at a school fundraiser. He was a guest speaker, recently retired from the Navy and exploring a second career as a youth counselor. They clicked instantly. "He had this way of looking at you like you mattered," Jessica wrote in her journal. "After years of watching Mom cry alone at night, I wanted her to have that." Andrew courted Lorraine like a gentleman from another time. Flowers, poems, surprise dinners. Within a year, they were married. Jessica, still grieving the loss of her father in a workplace accident, didn't know what to make of him. But he made her laugh. He cooked her favorite meals. He bought her books he said reminded him of her, complicated heroines with secrets they couldn't share. Jessica was 17 when he moved in. She thought it was just a crush, a temporary lapse in judgment, when she found herself waiting up for him to get home, when she laughed too hard at his jokes. When she started dressing more carefully around him, she didn't know it was him planting those feelings, subtly, with words like, "You're more mature than most girls your age," and, "I bet your friends don't get you like I do." What if kindness was just the first disguise of manipulation? And what if love was the very weapon he used? It was a quiet night in June, a Texas summer wrapping the house in warmth, when everything changed. Lorraine had gone to a late shift at the hospital. Jessica was watching a movie in the living room. Andrew joined her halfway through, sitting just a little too close. When the credits rolled, she stood up to go to bed, and he followed. "Good night, Jess," he said. She turned to respond, and he kissed her. Not a fatherly kiss, not even a confused one. It was confident, predatory. Her world didn't crumble that night, not immediately. That came later, in waves. But in that moment, standing at the threshold of her bedroom, her reality split. On one side, the daughter. On the other, the object of obsession. And that's where our story begins. Jessica Moore had always been the quiet observer, a girl who sketched while others gossiped, who listened while others competed to speak. At 24, she was pursuing her master's in art therapy at the University of Texas. But her story really began in the sleepy suburbs of North Austin, where she lived with her mother Lorraine and stepfather Andrew Wallace in a modest two-story home with ivy-covered fencing and a porch swing that had seen better days. Lorraine was a math teacher at Reagan High School, known for her strict grading but soft heart. Widowed when Jessica was 10, she spent years juggling bills and grief. Andrew Wallace entered their lives like a breeze of fresh air. With his military poise, disarming smile, and background in youth counseling, he quickly won Lorraine's trust and Jessica's guarded curiosity. To neighbors, they were the perfect trio. Sunday barbecues, joint volunteering at the community garden, and annual family photos framed on the mantel. Jessica even started calling him Dad after just a few months. He'd help her with science projects, show up at parent-teacher conferences, and leave handwritten notes of encouragement in her lunchbox. But around her 16th birthday, Jessica began noticing oddities, small, inconsistent moments that made her stomach tighten. The way his eyes lingered when she walked into a room. How his compliments subtly shifted from supportive to personal. "You're going to break a lot of hearts, Jess," he once said while brushing a strand of hair from her cheek. She forced a smile, unsure whether to feel flattered or alarmed. Lorraine noticed none of it. Love had blinded her, not in a foolish way, but in the tired way that happens when someone finally feels safe again. Jessica, not wanting to disturb that fragile happiness, kept her doubts buried beneath smiles and silence. She kept herself busy with her sketchbooks, her part-time job at a local bookstore, and her college prep. Yet sometimes she would catch Andrew watching her from across the room. Not as a father watches a daughter, but like an author watches a story he can't wait to rewrite. The man who seemed too perfect began revealing cracks, subtle, but growing. The night walks near her room, the way he'd comment on the way she laughed, and the inexplicable feeling that her space was never truly her own. There were deleted call logs on the home phone, passwords changed on devices. One day, her favorite blouse, a pale blue off-shoulder top, disappeared from the laundry. When she mentioned it, Andrew joked, "Maybe someone wanted a keepsake." It was meant to be playful. It felt like a warning. Jessica began journaling more often, sometimes filling pages late into the night. Her sketches grew darker, her dreams more restless. But she told no one, not yet. Because how do you accuse someone the world believes is your hero? It was during winter break, when the air turned dry and brittle and Lorraine picked up extra shifts at the hospital, that Jessica's world began to unravel. Andrew started leaving notes under her bedroom door. At first they were poetic, almost like something copied from a novel. "You are the moonlight in my darkest nights." She flushed with confusion, her stomach churning. She threw them away, but they kept coming. Then came the messages. Anonymous Instagram DMs. She blocked the first account, then the second. Then she stopped counting. The messages escalated. Suggestive poems, blurry photographs of her sleeping, and cryptic phrases like, "Your silence is the loudest yes." Jessica couldn't take it anymore. She confided in her roommate Danny, who immediately recognized the signs of grooming. "This isn't affection. This is obsession. You need to protect yourself." They hatched a plan. On her next visit home, Jessica would place a recording device inside a hollowed-out textbook in the living room. They needed evidence, not suspicions. What the recorder captured made Jessica's hands tremble. Andrew whispering to himself late at night while looking through her sketchbook. "One day, she'll understand. One day, it will be just us." She emailed the audio to Danny. That night, Danny called a legal advisor, Rachel Alvarez, an attorney specializing in domestic coercion cases in Austin. Rachel immediately scheduled a consult. Jessica felt a mix of fear and relief. Someone believed her. But the worst was yet to come. While cleaning the hallway closet, Jessica stumbled on a metal box marked Travel Docs. Inside were passports, foreign currency, and 2 plane tickets to Merida, Mexico, departing in 3 weeks. The names on the tickets, Andrew Wallace and Jessica Moore. She nearly dropped the box. Later that night, Andrew knocked on her door. "You don't have to pretend anymore," he said softly. "We both know this life isn't what we want. With your mom out of the picture, we could be happy." That night, Jessica didn't sleep. She printed the tickets, downloaded the audio files, and began preparing a timeline. The next morning, she filed a report with APD under Rachel's direction. But she couldn't shake one terrifying question. Was Andrew just delusional? Or was he planning something far more dangerous? After filing the report, Jessica knew her fight was just beginning. The law was slow, meticulous. Andrew was cunning, manipulative, and still living under the same roof. Rachel Alvarez advised Jessica to maintain normalcy while they built a bulletproof case. Jessica bought 2 additional recording devices, one disguised as a phone charger from Amazon and another a pin-sized camera she hid in the air vent of the hallway outside Andrew's study. She documented everything: his movements, his words, even the cadence of his footsteps at night. Each piece of evidence added to the growing dossier Rachel was compiling. One night, while Andrew was out on a work call, Jessica snuck into his study. Hidden behind a row of photo albums, she found a locked drawer. With a borrowed hairpin and Danny's instructions via video chat, she picked the lock. Inside were printed screenshots of her Instagram stories, emails sent to a private address she never gave him, and even a forged letter, written as if she had confessed her love for him. It was chilling. He was crafting a narrative where she was the instigator. Danny worked overnight to back up all files to the cloud. Meanwhile, Rachel contacted a trusted detective within APD to fast-track the digital forensics. But danger grew closer. Jessica overheard Andrew speaking to someone on the phone. "If it comes to it, we leave early. I'm not waiting for permission." Her hands trembled. The Mexico plan wasn't a fantasy. It was a countdown. Jessica began sleeping with a chair wedged under her doorknob. Every glance from Andrew now felt like a threat wrapped in a smile. The pressure built, like a storm swelling at the horizon. One morning, Jessica returned home from class to find her journal missing, the one she had hidden in the lining of her old suitcase. She confronted Andrew, who merely raised an eyebrow and said, "You should be more careful with your secrets. Karma doesn't rush, but it never misses." It was time to strike first. Jessica scheduled a confrontation, not alone, with Danny, Rachel, and a body-worn camera hidden beneath her hoodie. They would catch him admitting everything. She baited the conversation with a note. "We need to talk. Just us." She met him at the garden shed behind their house, where the lights flickered and memories of summer cookouts haunted the air. And there, with every word recorded, Andrew told her how they'd disappear. "Your mother's in the way, but Jessica, you were made for me." Behind the wooden slats, Danny held her breath. Rachel clutched the walkie-talkie. Justice was no longer an idea. It was in motion. The day of the hearing arrived. The Travis County courtroom buzzed with restrained tension as Jessica stepped inside, her eyes shadowed but firm. Clad in a navy blazer that once belonged to her late father, she stood as a silent symbol of resilience. Lorraine, visibly shaken, sat beside her for the first time in weeks. She had read the full dossier the night before, the messages, the recordings, the photos, and hadn't spoken a word since. Andrew entered calmly, wearing a tailored suit, his silver watch catching the courtroom lights. He scanned the room with a practiced smile, as if greeting guests at a fundraiser. When his eyes met Jessica's, he didn't flinch. Instead, he gave her a slow, almost imperceptible nod. The proceedings began. Jessica took the stand. Her voice, though soft, never wavered. She detailed the timeline, how admiration turned into discomfort, then into fear. The judge listened carefully, scribbling notes. Then came the evidence. Rachel Alvarez, poised and clinical, played the audio recordings. Andrew's voice filled the room. "Your silence is the loudest yes. We'll be free soon. I've made arrangements. Your mother. She's temporary. We are not." Gasps echoed through the courtroom. Lorraine's hands trembled, clasped tightly in her lap. Andrew's lawyer objected, claimed the clips were taken out of context, manipulated. But Rachel brought up the hard drives, the metadata, and the original files, all authenticated by APD's cybercrime unit. Then came the footage from the garden shed. "We can leave everything. You and me. You know I've loved you from the moment I met you." For a moment, Andrew's mask slipped. His eyes darted toward Jessica, not with guilt, but panic. But the most devastating blow came not from the prosecution, but from Lorraine. She asked to testify. The courtroom fell silent as she approached the witness stand. She held up a printed email thread, messages Andrew had sent to a private email account she'd long forgotten existed. In those emails, Andrew had detailed travel plans, fabricated alibis, and instructions for accessing her financial accounts in case of her sudden illness. "My husband was planning to erase me," Lorraine said, voice cracking, "and I was too in love to see it." The judge looked to Andrew. "Mr. Wallace, do you wish to respond?" Andrew stood. "They misunderstood me. I never laid a hand on her. She led me on." But as he spoke, Danny emerged from the audience. "I have something to add," she said, presenting one final recording, Andrew rehearsing a phone call to 911, mimicking a panicked voice. "My wife, she's not breathing. She just collapsed." The courtroom froze. Even the bailiff's hand hovered near his belt. The judge recessed briefly. When the verdict was read an hour later, the tension snapped like a rubber band. Guilty. Multiple counts, including attempted coercion, stalking, and conspiracy to commit fraud. Sentence, 28 years. No chance of parole. As the gavel dropped, Andrew turned to Jessica one last time. His face was blank. Not rage, not remorse, just emptiness. And that was the last time she ever saw him. The gallery sat stunned. One woman whispered, "He looked so normal." But monsters rarely wear masks. In the weeks that followed the verdict, the house on Red Maple Lane stood eerily quiet. Lorraine moved in with her sister in Colorado Springs, leaving behind furniture, photo frames, and a past too heavy to pack. Jessica returned to her apartment near UT Austin. The walls of her bedroom now lined with her own paintings, dark, surreal, and cathartic. Therapy became part of her routine. At first, she could barely speak, but slowly, week by week, her voice returned. So did her sense of safety. Her counselor described it as post-traumatic growth. Jessica called it survival with scars. She decided not to change her name. "He stole too much already," she said. "He doesn't get to take that too." Instead, she transformed her pain into purpose. She launched a support group for survivors of familial abuse called The Second Silence, named after the moment survivors stopped blaming themselves. Her story made national headlines, not for its salacious details, but for the courage it took to break the illusion of a perfect family. Schools across Texas began reviewing their staff screening protocols. Lorraine, despite the guilt that still haunted her, became an advocate for prevention programs, speaking at conferences with a humility born from regret. Jessica graduated that spring, receiving her master's in art therapy. Her final project was titled Fractured Trust, a series of mixed media installations that toured galleries across the state. One of the pieces showed a little girl holding hands with a shadow figure, her expression unreadable. Underneath, a quote, "The seeds you sow today will bloom tomorrow, whether you like it or not." And that's how karma struck, proving no one escapes justice. If you found this story moving, please like and subscribe to support the channel. Share this video to remind others that the truth matters, and that healing is possible. Comment below if you've ever witnessed a story where silence was finally broken.